Expedition 33 is a game I had no real knowledge of before it came out. I had seen it around, it was on sale for like 10% off before release, and I hadn't seen any trailers or heard much about it. Wasn't keeping up with the game whatsoever. So I went in with no expectations and it blew me away. From start to finish, it was a wonderful experience that was genuinely memorable. I play a lot of games and plenty of them I go through them, I finish them, and they're out of my mind. But this game I feel like will really stick with me and a lot of the people who played it, and a lot of people seem to enjoy it. It has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. So I'm going to go through and break down everything that makes this game good, because it does a lot of great things, from the story to the gameplay to the visuals, and even the music is quite excellent. I'm going to try my best to break down each one of these things, or at least give as much of a thorough explanation of why I enjoy all of them and how they all come together to make something that really is one of the best games I've played in a while. And I've said that with a few other games, and those games are great too, but this is just out of this world good. So I hope you stick around for however long this is. I don't really know how long it's going to be right now. I'll figure that out by the end of recording all of this. What I want to break down about this game is, well, the gameplay, because of course that's one of the most important parts. Now, I'm a person who doesn't mind playing games that are primarily story focused, but I have to be in a particular mood and it has to be a very specific type of game. And usually even then, there has to be some elements of gameplay that kind of keep me interested, or at least I engage with to some degree. Because there's really no genre game I won't touch, whether we're talking CRPGs, dating sims, visual novels, action games, fighters. It doesn't really matter. I will give anything a chance pretty much. And I found a lot of games over the years that are really good, and if I hadn't sat down and just gave them a try despite those elements, I would not have enjoyed myself so much. But that's kind of getting off topic. Kinda. But the gameplay will probably be the thing that keeps a lot of people's attention, because that's strong enough that even if they don't enjoy the story, despite it being, in my opinion, quite good, will keep them around and they'll get plenty of fun out of it. Turn-based games, some people like them, some people don't, for a bunch of different reasons. Some people don't enjoy them because they don't feel very immersed in the combat. They like something that's more fluid and makes them feel like an active participant in the combat that's going on. I've encountered plenty of people like that, and despite being a person who loves turn-based games, I can understand it to some degree, especially depending on what games you kind of grew up playing. It can kind of determine what you really like, especially as time goes on and you become more acclimated to that type of experience. But this is one of those games that I feel can even draw those people in, honestly, because it has all those turn-based elements that you're used to, but also adds in things that make it feel like you're actively doing something, even when it's not your turn. For example, you can parry, you can jump, you can dodge, and those three things alone, while relatively simple, add in a lot of extra nuances to the combat system, especially given with the variety of different attacks and moves, and you have to get the timing down for all of these. Jumping is probably the easiest one, because usually there's a clear sign, like a literal symbol that pops up on the screen, and it's relatively easy to usually dodge them, though it gets a little bit harder depending on what you're fighting, because some will be a little less choreographed or come out relatively quickly, or they'll have a certain animation that kind of gets you a little confused real quick, or they'll come out multiple at a time in a rather short period of time, so it'll keep you on your toes, especially when you're fighting multiple enemies, or they do certain things before the jump attack, like maybe they'll do something you might have to block or dodge, and then a jump attack come and you're kind of already on edge expecting something else, especially when it's your first time fighting it, so that really keeps you on your toes. The other attacks are usually mostly blocking or dodging, and dodging also relatively simple. Getting the timing down, it's also quite easy. Not as easy as jumping in my opinion, but still way easier than blocking, because there's a little bit more room for error when it comes to the dodge. Of course, you have regular dodge, perfect dodge, that can actually give you some benefits as time goes on, but you can be a little bit less quick with your actions when you're dodging. You can still get fucked up relatively quickly. And once you fuck up one dodge or one jump or one block or anything like that, you can kind of get caught in this loop where you're getting absolutely pummeled, especially because some enemies have long chains of attacks, and next thing you know, you're dead. I don't really think I need to go into much more explanation about the dodging. It's good to have, it's great. If you're failing at parrying attacks, blocking them and such, go with dodging. It's simpler, and you'll encounter it far more than jumping, and plus it's introduced earlier than jumping anyway, so that's the thing. Now, parrying. Now, this is harder. This is where it requires better timing, and you're probably going to mess up especially early on when you don't really understand movesets. But plus the variety of stuff will just get you caught off guard. But even new attacks, once you really get into the game, you kind of got a little bit better sense. And especially, there's usually a sign. The animations are good, so you can usually pick up, you can kind of get down, even when you see a new attack, okay, it's going to hit me then or there. I got that much time to react to it. You'll be able to get down the motions and understand, okay, I can block this. And plus, parrying gives you the ability to get damage. You get a perfect parry, you get to get a strike back on the enemy, and it can do a beautiful amount of damage and can really save your ass in certain fights, especially because they're group attacks. And to say this, group attacks can be any of the type of moves, really. So moves that you can block or parry, or moves you can jump, and even gradient attacks can be blocked. And gradient is something you're going to get into later, far later on to the game. And these are also can be relatively simple once you get the timing down, because some of them you'll have enemies that will do these gradient attacks and they'll have some build up. It won't be instant, it won't be quick, they'll be slower, they'll do multiple animations beforehand. And really that can kind of go for all attacks. They can do these little mix ups that'll get you kind of confused. But gradient attacks are also great, and anytime you block a gradient attack, any block is basically a perfect parry, so you get to do a lot of damage to the enemy. And you're going to want to block these because these gradient attacks can be quite devastating, so you especially want to make sure you block them, which will squish your characters depending on what kind of builds you're going for or what weapon you're using, because that's going to influence a lot of stuff. Now all these defensive options are a wonderful addition to the game. It would not be the same experience without them. And this is a game I would probably recommend if I'm ever having a conversation with somebody who says they don't like turn-based games. I'd recommend this. It's a good place to start, and maybe it will give them a little bit more interest, because there are other games that use this style of thing. There are other games that have some system that makes turn-based games more interesting. Something like the press turn system from SMT franchise I truly love. The press turn system, I know that alone, that being added to the games was something that drew a lot of people in and made a lot of people who didn't like RPGs play them, at least in my experience. But now let's go over and talking about what can you do in your turn. Well, there's a few things you can do. One, you got your basic attacks. You use these. You can usually generate AP from action points, which are what you can be using for your special skills. And there's a variety of these you can unlock as you level up and get more skill points. And they can do a lot of different things depending on the character, because each character has their own skill tree with different abilities that you can unlock over time. They also have different weapons, so it allows for a large variety of things. Also, AP can be used for ranged attack, and these ranged attacks can be used, one, to target enemy weak points, dealing a good amount of damage, and also flying enemies, which are something that you're going to usually want to go for your ranged attacks because they can dodge a lot of things. You can get lucky here and there, especially as you go on and you get more attacks in a turn, but ranged attacks are going to be the most viable option of taking down your flying opponents. And also throughout the world, you'll find pictos, I believe that's how you pronounce it, but these are basically little extra passive abilities you can add onto your characters, and you can find them. You can add 3 at a time onto a character, but after you use them for a certain period of time, you can add them onto your other characters by going to just this little tree with all of the ones you've unlocked and adding those on. And these are something I say you really need to use, especially depending on what difficulty you're playing on, and also if you're going to do a lot of the extra stuff in the world, because these things can give you extra turns, they can give you more AP during a turn, extra AP for dodging, or from dodging, let me be specific, and just doing any attacks in general or heal you. There's a wide variety of these things, and they are incredibly useful and can really help you steamroll a hard enemy if you get the right combination. But also, let's hop back to special skills you have. Now, when you're using your skills, there's a QTE that comes up. If you hit it, your attacks are fine. If you hit it at just the right time and you get a perfect, that makes things far better. More damage, more everything. It's just great. And also, if you fail it completely, sometimes certain attacks will just fail outright and you'll just be kind of screwed. You just wasted an action. You just wasted a turn, which will be fine if you got the right picos, you got extra pictos. God, Jesus, I gotta say that correctly. But if you got the right ones, you get extra turns, usually 1 extra turn. So you can fail, but that's usually not something you're going to get to way later on. So you'll just be screwed early on, and messing up can really bite you in the ass if the enemy's dangerous enough, and especially if you mess up with your parrying and dodging and all that. You can also use your tints. These are basically your healing items or items that restore AP or revive an ally, and these are useful. You can upgrade these over time along with weapons and giving you basically extra chroma, which is a resource you can use for your adding in these extra passive skills with the pictos that will allow you to just build up your character. And make sure to do this regularly, and make sure to be adding plenty of stuff on so you can not get get your ass beat, basically, because the game does get relatively difficult. I've tried it out on different settings. I've tried it out on the story one, expedition, tried it on hard. You can get your ass beat on any one of them, especially if enemies get you basically in a very bad position, because you and the enemies both have break gauges, and once these build up enough, if they do a particularly strong attack or you do a specifically strong attack against them, then basically you're out for a turn, or maybe more than a turn. You're fucked. You get your ass beat, and it's not going to be great. So you gotta be careful, especially with some science stuff like the Endless Tower, that I can say gets real difficult as you go through it, because you'll be fighting like 3 bosses at a time. I don't think that's a spoiler, really, but yeah, it'll get hard. And later on, you'll unlock gradient attacks. You'll basically have a bar. This bar is shared, so it has 3 stages, and as time goes on, you'll unlock different attacks. You start off with attacks that use one point from the bar, and then you'll get up to 3, and these are incredibly powerful. They can do a lot of cool stuff, and you basically gain bar by using attacks that use AP, so special skills. I don't know why I call them special skills. They're just kind of like skills, really. They're special to me, I guess. But you use them, you burn through AP, and you'll slowly be able to increase this bar. And as you go on, you'll get attacks that can use like 9 AP as you progress through the game. So it'll be relatively quick to build them up. I've used multiple like level 3 gradient attacks while fighting a boss, because health bars get massive. You're dealing 9,999 damage or even more once you unlock the correct picto for that later on. That lets you go beyond that point of damage, and enemies are still just like, I'm fine, barely a scratch on them. So yeah, it gets rough, and the difficulty of the game is something I'm also a fan of, because it does give a good experience no matter what you're looking for. It just changes a few things here and there. You know, enemies attacks will deal slightly less damage if you're not on like the basic expedition difficulty, but you still get a reasonable challenge, and it's alright for those people who are just kind of mostly for the story, or just want a little bit of both, but don't really want to have to like mid-max or really grind out, because I had to do some grinding at the end of the game because shit got real difficult real quick. It's a big jump from, okay, my level's fine, this is a little bit hard, to, oh, I'm getting one-shotted, okay, time to grind. But that's basic RPG stuff. That's stuff I'm used to. And plus, when the game is fun, grinding is just like whatever, especially because there's a good amount of side content I say you want to explore. Like, I did like 50 hours. There's still some more stuff I want to go through, really. Some of the extra stuff that I kind of want to figure out. But I'm saying that for a later time. Maybe I'll cover that at some point. But because I want 100% the game. But there's some things that are just kind of tedious. It seems like one of those things that you really kind of got to go in with a plan. So maybe if I ever get 100%, because I'm relatively close to it, I'll talk about this game again. And I think that covers combat, honestly. There's not much more to say. So I'm going to hop on to some other things to talk about. The story of Expedition 33 is an interesting one. It'll keep you engrossed throughout your entire playthrough, and I'm not going to spoil it right off the bat, no. I will leave a timestamp or something to when I get into spoilers. I'll try not to spoil the entire game, but I can make no promises, so that's something you can skip if you're not interested in. This is a world that is tragic. It's a story that's tragic. There are joyous moments, there are moments of levity, especially getting to know your party members and getting to experience everything with them, because they are on an adventure to save the world, of course, but an adventure on the same, because Luminaire, where all the humans live, is a place where everybody is faced with this inevitability of death, and of course, death is inevitability in reality, but they basically know the time and the place where they're going to die, because there's a doomsday clock in the distance, basically, and every year, the counter on it's getting lower and lower, and that is the maximum amount of time a person can live if they're lucky enough to survive to the age without any tragedies occurring in life as they can. And the reason this is Expedition 33, because people only have 33 years to live. And at the beginning of the game, we get to see how terrible this is, because we get to see people faced with this reality, because when this happens, you're just gone. You get gommaged. You get turned into dust and petals, and you just float away with the wind. And it's tragic seeing the people's reaction to their family members just being taken away from them in this way. And at some point, and the people know this, at some point, this will be a problem that cannot be fixed. It'll be unavoidable, and everybody's just going to be gone. Because at some point, they'll just be, children, like teenagers, small children. And at some point, people won't even reach an age where having children is possible. So it'll just be the end of everything. So these expeditions have been going out for years, and they haven't succeeded in defeating the Paintress, who is the antagonist. Though we'll find out there's more complexity to the story than just we go defeat this big bad person and the world is saved. And even when the end does come along for this story, it's one where I feel like there's really two options, because there's two endings. One's bittersweet and the other feels far more tragic and doesn't feel good to experience, in my opinion. Some people disagree about that, but for me, there's only one ending where I feel like there's some actual satisfaction there, and the other feels like torturous for the people involved and will never lead to even worse things happening in the future. Because once they go on this journey, it starts off terribly. It leads to characters being faced with just a horrible situation because a big group of people goes out and their hopes are crushed almost instantly. Or at least from their perspective in the moment, they're crushed because this isn't really a spoiler, but a lot of the people who go on this venture, there's a reason we have a relatively small party, because people get killed early on. This happens very early into the game. So even if you've played less than an hour, you will experience this. And this kind of paints a picture for our protagonist about how difficult this is really going to be and why all these other people failed. And we can see why they failed also, because we'll have these little notes things, these little spheres that hold information about the past where people documented basically what led up to their death or the events that were leading up to their demise in some way, shape, or form. To go more in depth with this story, I'm going to have to spoil some things. I'll try my best not to ruin the entire experience, but I can really make no guarantees, because once I get talking and rambling and yapping and such, I might go into territory where if you hear things come out of my mouth, at least the story section of the game might not be as enjoyable for you if you haven't already played it. So there's your warning. I hopefully will put a timestamp or something in this video when it comes time to edit it to let you know when you can hop on over to the visual section, because this is the end of spoiler free. Now let's talk about Gustav. Gustav is the character we learn to play the game as, the first one we get to control. He plays an integral part in the story, especially because of Mel, or Mel, however pronounce her name. I apologize if the way I said it didn't please your ears. But she plays a big part in the story, and their relationship is very impactful. And Gustav, well, he dies. He is taken out by one of the big bads, or really the big bad when it comes down to it. And he is replaced by Verso, who has a deeper understanding of this world. He is from the first expedition, and we learn that his family is not only an integral part of this world, but are the very creators of it. His mother is the paintress. His father is a man who we see very regularly throughout the story by the name of Renoir, who is also the father of Verso and the father of Alicia, who turns out to be, well, Mel, who basically came into this world because this world was originally painted by Verso himself, and Verso died in a fire, and it basically destroyed the entirety of his family mentally, and it destroyed Alicia also physically because she was severely burned. So when she drifted into this world, she basically became a brand new person and had to really learn who she was again, and that happens later on in the game. And the paintress was basically trying to keep this world alive because it contains the final fragment of his soul, and they just can't let go of him. And for Verso to basically be released from this world, and for all of that to happen, this painting has to be destroyed. All the characters we've met, all the party members, they are creations of Verso. They are creations of this world that he made. So for his final little piece of his soul to stop painting this world, it will end. Now, Alicia, or Mel, whichever one you wish to call her, she has to make a decision. Or really, we have to make a decision, because we can choose her side or Verso's side. And for me, it was a relatively easy decision to make by the end of the game, because basically you have this whole entire family being destroyed for the sake of this painting. And Verso himself, this new Verso, this painted version, and even his last fragment of his soul that is left in this world, does not want to exist. It is tired of painting. It is doing it only basically for, it seems, to satisfy his family, or really because he's kind of being forced in a way as well. And there's even some things pointing towards there being more things at stake if they do not leave this world. Because seemingly the Descendre family, which is the family of Verso and Paintress and Renoir and Clea, who's another one of their sisters, they're at war with the writers. No idea who they are, no real information about them. Maybe they'll be covered in the next game. But so there are more stakes, and also this world is killing everybody who's in it, because you can only stay in a painting for so long before you lose yourself, and it impacts your health. So it paints paints Rhaenyra in this way that, yeah, that he wants to destroy this world, but also it's the fact that he does want to save his family, because the whole family is falling apart. And I could not help but feel for him, because his entire family is refusing to face the reality that this person who was very important to them, a brother and a son, is gone. And they're just staying here to try to cope, to try to avoid reality. And I had to choose to just destroy the world. That's the only way it seemed they would get any actual type of closure in this situation, if they just had no choice but to face the reality. And that means every one of the characters we get to meet, all the people of Luminaire, our party members, side characters out in the world, they gotta go. And that might seem harsh, and that might not seem like a good ending for people, because there is going with Mael's ending, but Verso is basically a slave at this ending, because he still is conscious. He is a slave. Only benefit, I guess, he can age now, gets to play piano all day, because that's something he enjoys doing, but he literally begs to be destroyed, begs to have his life ended. And Mael, because she cannot deal with losing him again, just forces this man to live in this false reality, to not be able to pass on. He's basically just like a ghost, like a fragment of a soul being forced to exist in a form he does not want to, and just has to paint and keep painting until inevitably his sister's just gonna rot and die, because they are flesh and blood people. They have these magical powers, but they are not immortal or invincible. They have a lot of power in this world, but they are real people with real needs and can fade away, because the paintress, their mother, is fading away. She is dying. She is getting ill, and that is Mael's fate if he does not leave. And we fight Rhaenyra multiple times. We fight a painted version of him, which is called the Curator. Then we fight the actual him, because he's been at war just trying to get his family out of here, trying to pull them back from this terrible situation they're in. And the ending where you side with Verso, it is a sad one, because all these people you come to love stop existing. This world could technically be painted again. Like, Mael could paint a similar world, and you can get into philosophical concepts. Are these real people? Or just murder all these people for the sake of one person? But I'll be real with you, I just do not feel bad about doing it. It's sad, but they've made multiple worlds, they've lived in them, they've enjoyed them, and they've gone about their business. Now this one has sentimental value, but still, it is going to be destroyed either way also, because if Mael dies, the world is going to be destroyed, because Rhaenyra is not going to let it exist, especially when he's sad that another one of his children passes away. He's going to destroy it, because that's another reason why his wife is probably going to hop back in and then die herself. So it's really the only option he has if he wants to save any of his family and not just be sitting there watching everybody he knows and loves just kill themselves. And at least with this ending you get when you choose Verso, they have a funeral for them, the whole family's there. There is some sense of closure for them, so they can at least attempt to kind of rebuild things. And of course, he's gone, so they're always going to have this lingering sadness of losing someone that they care about, but they can at least try to put back the pieces a little bit and get some joy from this real life they have with each other. And that's all I have for the story. That's mostly just stuff I kind of wanted to get off my chest, because after I played it, I was just thinking about it. It was sloshing around in my brain, so I just had to get it out. And if you want more in-depthness to it, well, I suggest you go play it, because it's worth it. Even with what I told you, there's still a lot more interesting things there that you might only pick up if you play the game yourself. So that's the end of all story talk. Now let's get on to this final little section where we talk about the visuals and the music. And for the music, let's imagine me and you were having a conversation in real life. I play one of the songs from the game for you and I say, isn't this good? You probably say, yeah, man, that's pretty good. And the conversation would probably end like that, most likely. That's how most conversations I've had about music kind of ended in real life. We just agree that this is a good song and we kind of just go on to something else or just sit there listening to it. And that's how it would basically be for this video. I would play you a song and say it's wonderful. I probably wouldn't give any actual musical critique or any theory or anything like that, because I don't really know much about that. And sure, that's not necessary to say anything about music in the game, because not everybody that talks about it is some music nerd or some expert, but I would just be repeating myself. So that's all I'm going to say. Great music. So let's hop over to the visuals. This is a well-crafted world where every little thing looks amazing, from the stuff you see on the overworld, because all the sections where you're going to be doing most of the story, a lot of the side content, you go through a portal and it's basically this closed off world, which I think is really nice. And sometimes you get a little bit of an idea of what this place you're going into looks like based on how it looks outside. But once you go in, you get to see how absolutely beautiful it is. And the characters, they look great. The outfits look great. The hair, everything. Wonderful. And not just in terms of visual fidelity, even though that's nice, but in terms of the design of everything, because it's a very well-crafted, unique world. And that kind of adds to this idea that this is a painted world. This is a creation of someone's artistic expression, and things can get rather abstract and everything looks the way you expect something in reality to look. And the game's not really going for this photorealism. It's going for something that mixes reality with this creative flair, which is nice to see. Because I don't mind playing a game every once in a while that goes for realism. And you can even find some games that are taking place in fantastical worlds going for this more realistic feel, but things get a little for me. That's probably not, I could have probably expressed that in a more well-structured way, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. You could probably get a couple nice screenshots out of this game. Looks good. This isn't a particularly long section. I just want to kind of express that. If you were looking for some deep analysis of every little minute detail of the visuals, or especially the music, you're not going to get that here. So yeah, I'm kind of just going to end it off because honestly, this was a great game to play. Hopefully I 100 completed at some point, but it is worth every cent, especially because it's relatively inexpensive in comparison to other games. You know, it's less than 60. It's less than 70. It's definitely less than 80. So it's like $44, 45, something like that, depending on where you're at and the exchange rates and the taxes and all that stuff. So yeah, I recommend it. If you haven't played it, give it a chance. You might be surprised. You might find a new game that you really love. You can put a lot of hours into it, have a good time all around. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is probably one of my longest videos. And I try to break down things a little bit more detailed than usual. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can subscribe. If you didn't, you can dislike it, unsubscribe, I guess, if you are subscribed already. But yeah, thank you for watching. Peace. I'm out.